This is the Echo Bravo LT fly reel, and it's Echo's top-of-the-line freshwater reel. So top-of-the-line for Echo means something different than top-of-the-line for most other brands, which is to say that this reel here comes in at $120, which is near the bottom end of the price range for almost every other reel maker out there. With that said, this is actually becoming a little bit of a competitive segment. And if you're looking for your first fly reel, this one might be on your list. And today we're going to answer the question of should it be on that list? Starting with our first factor, which is the drag. This Echo Bravo LT 4.5 has about 2.5 turns of drag, which is about the right amount. If you watched our other videos, you'll know that 2.5 turns gives you sort of the right mix of adjustability without having to spin it and spin it and spin it to dial in the right amount of drag. Also, as you'd expect at this price point, this drag is not sealed, and it's also a freshwater reel, so it's not something I'd really worry too much about. In terms of strength, this drag is not the most powerful. We didn't throw this on our testing machine, but if I had to guess, I'd say 2 to 4 pounds of drag. It's not a lot, but it's definitely enough for most freshwater situations. If you're fishing for steelhead with your 5-weight, maybe upgrade to something a little bit better, but otherwise, this is probably going to do the job for you, especially for your local trout stream. I think if I were to summarize the drag in one line, it's that it has one, and it's good enough. And I think that's going to be the theme for this reel. It gets the job done. And the question is there a better reel at this price point? But let's move on to the spool. We've got a 3.2 inch max diameter, a nice narrow 0.9 inch width, and a 2.16 inch arbor. That's going to give us a retrieval rate of about 7.5 inches per turn, or about 160 turns to bring in that fly line. It also holds about 100 yards of backing, which is plenty for your 5-weight trout rod. And while these specs are totally fine, you'll definitely get a slower retrieval rate with this Bravo LT than you'll find on some other reels at this price point, and definitely with reels as you go up in performance and price. Now let's move on to the weight, and this Echo Bravo LT, which presumably stands for light, is actually not super light at just a hair under 6 ounces. That's going to put it at the heavier end of reels at this 5-weight size, but it's definitely not a heavy weight reel. It's not trout spay or Euro nymph heavy. It's just not super lightweight. And again, that's probably fine for your first trout reel, but maybe not the highest performing reel out there. Up next is going to be the sound, and well, why don't you have a listen? As you can hear, it's got a pretty muted incoming and outgoing click. There's really no material differentiation between the two, but it's fine. I prefer some click that you can hear over no click at all, and I'd say it's okay, or totally fine. And last but not least is going to be the ergonomics. And I'd say this is one area where the Bravo LT is not my favorite reel, especially on the drag knob, which is really pretty small. And just like some other Echo reels we've tried, as you tighten this down, it gets harder and harder to actually grip. But I also feel like that's not the worst defense in the world, because as a trout reel, you're probably going to set it and forget it anyway. The handle is pretty nice, and again, as is the theme with this reel, it is totally fine. I'd say actually this is an easier to grip handle than some other reels in this category, but it's definitely not quite as large of a handle as I'd like to see. It does have a really nice spool release though, so it's very easy to switch spools. And I would say that if you were, say, a lake fisherman and had a bunch of spools and were switching them all the time, that might be one reason that this reel really stands out. It's just super fast and easy to switch those spools around. And while this doesn't quite fit into our typical ergonomic notes, it is interesting to note the positioning of the reel foot on this reel feels off-center. I think it's actually centered on the true center of the reel from the tip of the drag knob all the way to the edge of the frame, but most reels center it in the center of the spool, and this one doesn't, which is kind of interesting and kind of weird. And that brings us to the Echo Bravo LT's primary selling point, which is its price. And at $120, it is a relatively cheap fly reel by today's standards. And at the beginning of the video, we said that that would be the main characteristic of deciding whether or not you should buy this reel, and I think it still stands. There are other reels like the Reddington Run that I think generally outperform it here. But if you're not a fan of Reddington, or if you prefer something that's a little more understated, again, I think this reel is totally fine. And I think it'd be a totally solid choice as a first fly reel. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on the Echo Bravo LT, and especially if you've got one, tell me what you like and don't like about it by leaving us a comment in the box below. And of course, if you have questions about this reel, we've got answers. Give us a call at 888-413-5211 or email us 24/7 at support@tridentflyfishing.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we've got a lot of great reel reviews coming right up. I'm Ben. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.